Hi, and welcome to our open house. I'm Christina Palmer.
And I'm Celeste Huss with Parker Real Estate.
Today we're going to talk about the 5 out-of-pocket expenses in a real estate transaction.
Yes, there certainly could be more than 5, but we felt that these were some of the most important out of what we see in a real estate transaction. So, I will get started. The first one is earnest money. When you find the home that you love and you want to write an offer on it, one of the first expenses and things that you're going to address is earnest money. Now, earnest money is basically you telling the seller, hey, I'm willing to give you this much money to take your home off of the market, kind of like a deposit in a way. Okay?
So do you see this money ever again? Is it refundable?
Yes, you do see it again. It actually is credited towards any of your costs in the transaction at the very end. Now, it can be refundable. That's why I suggest talking to your real estate agent and understanding the dates that you have, because you're going to have a due diligence deadline, a finance and appraisal deadline to make sure that the condition of the home is the way that you'd like it, and the financing is what you wanted as well. Because if something were to change and your financing was going to be different, or they didn't lock your interest rate and now you're going to pay a lot more, then you may want to be able to back out of the transaction for that. And that enables you to get that earnest money back in that instance.
Great.
So.
Another expense is the inspection. An inspection is where you're going to have an inspector come in and look at the home to make sure that it is exactly what you are buying. Like, the ins and the outs of the home. They're going to look at the roof. They're going to go look at the foundation and the piping and plumbing and all of that stuff. But that is an out-of-pocket expense that the buyer will need to pay for at the time of service.
And how much are people paying for those?
Usually inspections are about $400 to $500, depending on the size of your home and the company that you go with.
And you can also add on extra services too that can increase that depending on your concerns and those things. So, okay.
Appraisal fee, another one. Appraisal fee runs between $400 and $600, and it is required if you're taking out a loan for this property. It is required from your lender, and they will choose the appraisal. They'll come out, they'll assess the value of the home in the current market. That too is also an upfront cost. It's required before they go out and perform the service.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so one that doesn't come up too often, but is certainly something to be aware of, would be a survey. A survey is called in usually if there's a problem with any property lines. So if they look on the title report and a person's garage is over on part of the neighbor's property.
That does happen.
That does happen.
More times than you think.
Yeah, and so surveys are there to help make sure that the property boundaries are, and really the biggest thing with this is a lender. A lender wants to know that the property that they're lending on is exactly it. So I've had one recently that everyone's always understood that it's been over an acre, but truly it's actually just 0.8. And so we had to go to the neighbors, get a boundary line adjustment, and luckily we avoided the cost of a survey because the lender was okay with it. But usually the lender is the one who says you have to have a survey. Unless you have just two parties that are questioning things, then it's whoever wants to pay for it, they can have a survey done anytime they want.
Is that negotiable? I mean, could buyers and sellers talk about maybe splitting that cost of that type of a survey?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great.
I would say that it's all negotiable.
Perfect.
So, closing costs. What do we know about closing costs?
Closing costs. Well, you've got to close the deal. Ah! I was like, yeah. The 5th out-of-pocket expense is the closing costs.
Closing costs. Now, there are closing costs for a buyer and there's closing costs for a seller. A seller is going to have minimal closing costs. They will pay a title fee to the title company to close up the transaction. They're going to provide a owner's policy to the buyer, which in a way ensures that what they're getting, the property description that they're getting, is accurate and true, and that the other, that the mortgages will be paid off, so that can come back and haunt the new buyer. And if it did, that's what that insurance policy is there.
It protects them.
To protect the buyer. So that's what the seller typically is going to pay for. Now the buyer has their own set of closing costs, and most of those have to do with obtaining a loan. So if you're paying cash, your closing costs are super duper minimal. But if you are buying a home, then your lender is really going to lay out your closing costs for you.
Escrow fees, title insurance.
Yeah, so there's another title insurance policy that the lender requires to protect them in case of default or, property line disputes or something like that. You can have administrative fees, underwriting fees, processing fees, and the lender, you want to make sure that you get those documented, because the lender does need to spell those out for you, and you have to acknowledge that you're okay with those.
Yeah.
You can also, and this is probably a topic for another video, but you can shop different lenders, because different lenders will have different closing costs.
Give us a like, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
And if you have questions for us, leave them below in the comments and let us know video topics that you'd like to hear about. Thanks everyone. Have
See
a
you
good
later.
day.